That when God is for you, who can be against you?
Come on.
Huh? How many of you believe that it's not by might nor by power, but it's by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts? How many believe that by His stripes we are healed?
Come on. Come on. Come on. Hallelujah.
How many understand when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I?
Yeah. Hallelujah.
How many understand that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us?
Come on.
Look at somebody and say, I got joy. Smile at them, show those teeth. Say, I got joy. There's a difference between joy and happiness. Happiness may be fleeting. You may find some sorrow in your life at some time, but joy comes. Joy comes. Weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Hallelujah. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sing. He gives me joy that cannot be surpassed. Hey now.
I'm on the cloud. From the first moment to the last, my Lord, He walks with me and talks with me, telling me I'm His own. He calms all my fears, telling me I am not alone. He makes a difference, He makes a difference in my life.
Yes, come on. Rotten liar, the devil. He thinks he might have us. You may be seated. Slewfoot. Ugly rascal. Huh? How many of you believe that greater is He that lives within us than he that is in the world? This morning I want to share a few things with you. I am going to, under the direction of our pastor and his wife, share the story of what happened in his life in this past week. When he gets back and he's ready to preach his first message, we're going to show you some pictures, read a poem that has already been written about his adventure, and we'll share a lot of things with you when he gets back. But today he wants me to share this testimony. God has been good to my father. Now, how many of you ever heard the polio story? Well, we were kidding a little bit when everything that God was doing His work, and we were just giving glory to God, and said, well, it might be a little while before we have to hear the polio story again, because He's got a new story to tell. But somebody said, no, I want to hear them both. How many of you understand when God has done something for you that you need to go share it and tell somebody else? Now, I want to let you know that God does not heal just for the sake of healing. God does not bring miracles just for the sake of a miracle. But He does that to show Himself to the world so that His testimony can be preached out and souls won to the kingdom of God. This morning I prayed, if there is one person here that doesn't know Jesus Christ, that through what has been going to be shared, that they will come to know Jesus Christ. Can we have a good amen? Amen. I want to share with you, and I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to deliver to you the events. A week ago, after he had preached Sunday morning, and God blessed us, we had a meeting here. And the life meeting was going on. And by the way, let me just stop for a minute before I'm getting into the story and say that we have several people that are over helping with our back to school carnival that's taking place right now. And they're having a great time over there with the big balloon things and all of the events that they're doing, the games. And they're giving out things today for the children that need some help with their supplies for school. And let's just give our children's church a great big God bless you today. today. Amen. Many are over there helping and working in that area. You're looking around and not seeing people. They're right over there. And so we just want you to know that, and so that you can be thanking God for them. But when he got through preaching, we got through with the meeting, Pastor went home. Mom got there a little bit later, and while he was there, he began to hurt so bad. He was walking and tossing and going outside and inside, and he couldn't get any relief in his chest, and it was hard for him to breathe. And he started telling Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need some help. And she tried to get him to go to the hospital right then. And he began to, and I know this may be a little bit graphic, but I'm just going to tell you, he began to belch. And he belched long. And when he did that, he was pretty much okay, felt like he was all right. And he said, no, Mom, I'm all right. We'll be okay. And y'all know Sunday night, he preached the power of God down. How many remembers he preached on adultery? Thou shalt not commit adultery. And did a great job. And I tell you what, he's been blessing us with that. And I told him, I said, Dad, the 10 Commandments are on hold just for a little while. And knowing him, it's going to be a lot shorter than what they want him to. But he preached that night. And just God blessed him well. That next morning, my mom was taking my 2 children and Carol's 2 children. Early that morning, they were going to Sharon's house. And they were going to spend a couple of days there with them before the school season started up so that they could be together. And about the time that Mom got almost to Sheridan, which is on the other side of Little Rock, she gets a phone call, and Dad is crying on the phone. And for my dad to cry with pain, I don't remember that. I remember him having a lot of pain, but not crying with it. And he said, Mom, I'm having trouble. And he said, I'm going to call Carol. And she said, you want me to come back? And he said, no, I don't want you to come back. I just want you to pray for me. And so he called Carol, and then he called me and began to cry over the phone and said, I cannot get any relief. I am hurting. I can't breathe, and I've got to have some help. So Carol rushed over there, and I rushed over there. In the meantime, Carol called me because she got there first. And she told me that she found him out in the front yard. He was bent over in the grass. And when she got there and was pulling up, he raised up, and she said he belched real long again. And looked at her and said, hey, I think I'm going to be okay. He said, I'm fine. And she goes, well, we're taking you to the doctor. And he tried to rebel a little bit against that. She goes, no, we're going. She called me. She goes, don't you think we need to take him to the doctor? And I said, yeah, I do. This is the second time he's had this happen. Most of y'all remember that he preached Sunday night and told y'all that the devil tried to kill him Sunday afternoon. How many remembers that when he said that? And so we said, no, you're going to go ahead and go on. And we went to his doctor, and we began to share with him what had gone on. And he decided to do an EKG. And so they put him on the heart monitor and did the EKG. When it came back, it was flatline normal, no problems whatsoever. Dad began to tell the doctor, I think I've got acid reflux or indigestion or something like that. He said, because it seemed like every time I belch, I get feeling better. And so he said, I think that's what it is. And so he pretty much convinced the doctor, you got to know something about my dad. When he goes to the doctor, he tells them his diagnosis. Yeah, that's what he does. And so he pretty much convinced Dr. Abernathy that he was having acid indigestion and just needed some help with that. So they did a couple of tests on him and tried to get the acid reflux to start, and they could never get it to start because they wanted to try a medicine concoction that would let them know for sure. It really never happened, but we went ahead and Dr. Abernathy prescribed Prevacid for him. Said, I want you to take this 10 days, come back and see me in 10 days. Dad said, okay. Sharon went to work, Cheston went to work, and Dad wanted something to eat, so we went and got him something to eat at one of his favorite spots, the rolling pin down here. And so we ate there and got done. He come home. He said, I'm going to rest for a few minutes because I'm tired. He said, but I'm going to go out in the shop and do some things, and I'll just try to take it easy. I won't do too much. And I said, okay. And at 8:30, I called him and asked him how he was doing. I said, how are you doing, Dad? And he said, well, I had a little trouble this while ago. he said, I started feeling burning and tightening. And he said, but I noticed on that paper that Dr. Abernathy gave me I wasn't supposed to eat tomatoes. And I had read that to him, and he goes, but I wanted them anyway. And so I ate them. And he goes, I'm sure that's what happened. I've got that acid going on building up in me. And he goes, so I took one of them pills. Carol called me and said, you better take it. And so I'm taking it right now. And I'll be all right. That's okay. Well, call me if you need me. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Dad got up and he was hurting real, real bad. And he couldn't get any relief, and he didn't call us at 4 o'clock in the morning. He just changed into some swimming trunks, went out into his pool, and got in there and thought he could move around because he was hurting in his chest, and thought that would help him and try to get something moving and going. And he stayed in there for a little while, felt like he got to feeling a little bit better, and he got out of the pool. And then he went... got changed, got on his clothes, and just went ahead and got ready, but sat in his recliner and just slept in the recliner, sitting up. Slept till about 6:30, and got up and went back to the rolling pin for breakfast. And so he had breakfast, and he got here at the church at 8:30, and he had called to try to check on someone who was having a surgery, and was just getting ready. And I already see where he started to do some of his message. And getting ready for this coming Sunday, and sitting there reading his paper. Well, at 9 o'clock, Beth and I, we're here, and I've got a meeting at 9:30. A lady was showing us some equipment for the preschool that we're thinking about purchasing. So we looked at that in about 15 minutes, 9:45, it was done. I kind of like those things. She told me it was only going to be 15 minutes while she was there, and she was right. She was done. And so about that time, I had made a phone call to Brother Jay Pence, our treasurer, and told him to call me back, and he called me back. Well, since there was public people in my office, I thought, well, we'll just, if we need to talk about something about the church or something, I'm just going to go in Dad's office. And I don't know why I decided to do that. Meanwhile, I told Beth, I said, hey, wrap up here with Carolyn, and I'm going to go in Dad's office and take the call. Went in there. He was still just kind of reading his paper. And I said, Dad, I'm going to take a phone call from Brother Jay in your office. Somebody's in mine. He said, all right. Told him what it was about and went behind his desk. And his desk is facing front like this, and his phone is behind him. So I'm right here at the phone beside him, and I'm talking to Brother Jay. About a minute or two into the conversation, my dad began to make a real deep snoring sound. It was just a like that. And to be honest with you, because Dad and I joke with each other a lot, I thought he was kidding with me. I thought he was telling me to get off the phone because I'm boring him. And so we was just going to play around. And so I punched at his shoulder and I said, Dad. And he didn't respond, kept making this snoring sound. And I grabbed his shoulder, and he didn't respond, kept making it. And I pulled his face to me so I could see his face. And his eyes were already rolled back in his head. And when I did that, he went to the side, and his arm of his chair caught him, and he kept making this snoring sound. And so when I saw that, I yelled at Brother Jay over the phone. I said, call 911. Something's happening to Daddy. I don't know what it is. And so I reached behind his neck and picked him up and set him upright, and trying to slap on his face and trying to get him to come to or whatever. And he quit doing the snoring sound, but he started making a blowing sound through his mouth like that. And his doctor told him what it was happening is he was trying to get oxygen. And so he was doing that. And so while he was doing that, I was saying, Dad, come on, I'm right here with you. And I just laid my hand on his chest, and I said, that's all I could say at that time. I said, God, you take care of my daddy. And that's all I said. And so he blinked and swallowed, and I thought he was coming to because it looked like he had teared up and looked like he was about to cry. And I talked into his ear, and I said, Dad, I know you're nervous about what's going on, but I said, just relax. I'm going to go get some help. And so I ran out of the room because Beth had been in the nursery, which is quite a ways off from the offices back here. And she was showing them. They were learning about the new equipment. And so I went down there and yelled at her, something's wrong with Dad. Come running back. And that time he was doing the breathing sound with his tongue again. And so I come around there and I was going to try to help him again. But when I got there to him, I was talking to him just for a second. And all this time he was just looking straight ahead. His eyes were dilated and he was just looking straight ahead. And all of a sudden he just went like that with his tongue out of his mouth. And he clenched down. And I didn't think he was breathing. I couldn't tell. I couldn't feel anything on his nose. So I opened up his mouth with my hand, with my thumb and my finger, and just opened it up, trying to get him some air because I thought he can't breathe through his nose. And so I was trying to get him some air. Well, when I opened up his mouth like that right there, he just went like that, and there was no more breathing. And his chest stopped. There was nothing happening through his nose and mouth. And I began. Sister Glenda was in there. Sister Beth was in there. A couple of us, like Sister Sarah was in there. And I just began to yell out, "He's not breathing. He's not breathing." And I picked him up out of the chair and tried to turn. I was turning back this way, and I was going to lay him down. And I was laying him down, and I got him to where he was touching his leg on the ground, but his back was about this far off of the ground. And I just kind of lost him. He just kind of hit the ground, the carpet there, and immediately I thought, I hope I didn't bump his head or something. And so he was right there. And about that time, Adrian from our preschool, who knows CPR, and by the way, we're fixing to have a CPR class in this church. I'm telling you, we're going to, and I'm going to be its first pupil. I'm going to tell you, we're going to do that. You need to know this stuff. I just want you to know that. And so she come around and she said, "Call 911, stay on the line." And she opened up his mouth to give him his first breath. And when she did that, he kind of coughed, breathed in real big, and his eyes opened up. And he looked around and he goes, "What in the world is going on?" He said, "Did I pass out or something?" No, first he said, "Did I fall?" And I said, "Well, you did a little more than fall, Dad." He said, "Well, did I pass out?" And I said, "Well, you did a little more than pass out." And he goes, "Oh, I'm all right. Let me up." And Adrian, she pushed him down, and she said, "No, you need to lay right here." He goes, "Oh, I'm going to be fine." And so about that time, the paramedics came, and they were there just in a short time. I'm guessing, I'm thinking of that from the time his episode started was about 10 minutes, but he probably had lost his breathing for about 20 seconds or so. I'm going to guess. Right there. But somewhere in that area, by the time I looked at his mouth when he stuck his tongue out, probably about 20 seconds. What I love about it was in the background, I could hear Sister Glenda and my wife crying and praying and talking to God. Beth tells me that it was kind of, Glenda would talk to God and then she'd talk to Beth. She'd say, "Oh, God, take care of him." Then she'd say, "Beth, can I do anything?" Then she'd say, "Oh, Jesus, take care of him." And she'd say, "Beth, can I do anything?" And God brought him back. The doctor said that chances are that when I accidentally dropped him the rest of the way when he was falling down, that it jump-started his heart and brought him back. Because he said, looking at the damage, or not the damage on his heart, but as blocked as he was in his heart, that he should never have come back. But God has another plan. God is sovereign. And I want you to understand this. Don't ever quit praying for people to be saved. Don't ever quit praying for people to be healed. Don't ever quit praying for people to be delivered. Because until God says it's over, it ain't over. You understand? You understand? Until God says it, when God decides, He is sovereign. He is not out of control. He is in control. And so, I'm going to share a side of Dad with you just a little bit. A lot of you know how he is. But I'll share a little bit with you. When he come around, he wanted to set up, and they finally, they let him set up, but they were taking blood and stuff. And they had actually done an EKG right there. besides some fluttering in his heart, the EKG looked good there. The emergency doctor showed me, because I thought it looked bad because I saw these things. He goes, well, that was probably just that last moment or so, and he was taking deep breaths, and it just made it erratic. He said, but he was normal. He was fine. And so Brother Curtis said, well, he saw the paramedics come in. He goes, well, what are they doing? And I said, well, they're going to take care of you. And he goes, I don't need no ambulance. He said, I'm fine. He said, just take me to the doctor. And I said, Dad, and he said, no, I don't want to go in that ambulance. And I was still on the phone with the 911 lady, and the paramedics were there too. And I said, I don't think he's going to get in that ambulance. He said, I don't know. You just might not get in it. And so when they were taking the blood test, they checked it, and they saw that he was not having enough oxygen in his blood. And when they saw that, they said, Mr. Curtis, you don't have enough oxygen in your blood, and you're going to go with us. We're going to take you. And he looked at me and he said, that's money. That's money. And so I said, Dad, don't worry about the money. We'll be all right. And so we got to the emergency room, and he was fine. When we got there and we got in his room, he was sitting straight up in the bed, cross-legged, and doing just fine. His color was great. Everything was fine. When I got there, I said, Dad, how are you doing? He said, I'm fine. He said, it's just so hot in that ambulance. He said, I couldn't breathe in the ambulance. It's 85 degrees in there. And what they had been apologizing, and that I guess their air conditioning wasn't working, and they told him they was getting it fixed and getting it taken care of. He said, man, they said, can I help you, Mrs. Curtis? He said, well, it's hot in here. And he said, I need to breathe. I can't breathe because it's hot. But he got there, and they did another EKG at the emergency room, still normal. They went back and did an X-ray on his chest. Nothing wrong with the X-ray. Looked good. A little bit later, they come back and said, we're going to do a CAT scan, head to torso. And they did that, come back and told us that was fine, no problem. The only reason that they kept Brother Curtis was because when they did his blood test there at the hospital, they noticed that his enzymes were up. There is a troponin enzyme that's connected with your heart, and that it gives them red flags that there could be heart damage, and so or you wouldn't have that kind. And so they said, we're going to look at you a little closer. The nurse come in and told him that looked like that he was going to stay a little bit longer and probably stay overnight, and he just couldn't believe that. And the emergency room doctor come in and told him, said, Mr. Curtis, the 3 tests we did, 2 of them are normal, but that third one with the enzymes is elevated, and we need to check it out. And so we're going to keep you a while. Little sweet young nurse come in at the emergency room, and she come in to pastor, and she goes, Mr. Curtis, you're going to be a keeper. He said, a keeper? What's a keeper? She goes, we're keeping you overnight. He goes, you're getting me my own room? And she said, well, no. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in CCU. And Dad, knowing enough about the hospital, said, CCU? He said, I'm fine. I got acid indigestion. He said, I'm fine. He said, I got this reflux. He said, I don't think I should have ate breakfast like I did. He said, that's probably what got me messed up. And when the doctor come in, he told him, he said, I think what I've had is an allergic reaction to that medicine. I told you, he diagnoses himself. And he said, I'm going to be fine. You shouldn't have to do that. And he looked at that little girl, and she goes, well, we're going to put you in CCU. And he said, honey, that sounds like money to me. And she went out, and he looked at me. As my dad, he kind of grinned at me, and he goes, I know what this is all about. Y'all gave them that insurance card, and that's what all this is about right here. He was joking and playing around. But they went in and took him up to CCU. All along this time, Mom is, when we got done and got him revived, and he was going on the ambulance, that's when I called Mom. I tried to call Sharon because I wanted her to tell her and not me over the phone. Sharon had just stepped out of the house, so I couldn't get a hold of her. Tried to call Monroe, he was doing an install for a sound system and was not available. And I called back and got Mom on the phone. I was hoping I'd get Sharon, but Mom answered. And I said, Mama, we're taking Dad to the hospital. He's going by ambulance, and he's had some trouble. And I just didn't tell her everything. I just said, that's what we did. And so they immediately jumped in. Sharon got there a couple of minutes later back to the house. They got all the clothes. They was ready in 10 minutes or left part of the clothes. I don't know what they did. But they got here. She was driving on her way back, and we'd let her know what was going on with the emergency room and everything as we'd called. And they got here about 3:30, and about 4:15 or so, the nurse come in at the CCU and said, hey, I don't know what Dr. Churchill's going to want to do. You might get something done tonight. You might get something done tomorrow, but they'll probably check you out. That's why they got you up here. You wouldn't be here if they didn't want to check you out. So something will go on, but it might not be tonight. He goes, well, can I eat? I'm hungry. And she said, well, let me go check with Dr. Churchill's main nurse, and we'll see. She's come back. She goes, well, they said that he hadn't said you couldn't, so you're gonna, go ahead. And so they come in about a minute after that and said, no, Dr. Churchill's changed his mind. He's going to do something tonight, and so you can't eat. And so they told us that, brought us in a movie to watch about angioplasty. And, just everything was normal. Everything was going fine. Dad was fine. He was joking. We were having a good time. He was making jokes and cracking jokes. When the doctor come in, he said, so you're the one that put me up here and won't let me eat, and just joking with the doctor. So they, at 6:30, no, at 6 o'clock, they took him on the angioplasty. And by this time, many people had come. I mean, my dad is so appreciative of this church. Many people had been there at the emergency room. People took off work. People did a lot of things. They come their way, and they prayed with him. And it was right there. That was a strength for him and for us. It was such a strength. And I'll never forget how I feel being on the other side. I've been on the side of the preacher going to somebody, but I've never been on the side where I was needing something. And I know a little bit more what it means. And I want to say I thank y'all for coming. I thank y'all for coming. And so 6 o'clock, they told him, said, we might not find anything. If we don't find anything, we'll be out in 30 minutes. And if we do find something, what we'll do is we'll do a balloon or a stent. And we'll take care of him. In an hour or two, we'll be done. And that was fine. By this time, there was several people in the CCU waiting room. And so the doctor come out about an hour and a half later. And he went to get us and said, I need to talk just to the family. And so we went out, and while he set us down in another area, he said, I need to introduce you to somebody. And there was another gentleman walking up, and he goes, this is Dr. Davis. He's a heart surgeon, and what we were going to do is not going to work for your dad. And so they put down a chart in front of us and showed us there are 3 main arteries outside of your heart, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. The one in the back was 99% clogged, with a side artery that comes off of that main one 100% blocked. On the front one in the middle, he was 99% blocked, right in the middle. And with another one on the side at the top of that one, 90% blocked. On the main one, on the which would be your left side, looking this of your heart, your main third artery, he was 90% blocked. And they said, we're going to have to do emergency surgery tonight. He is set up right now to have a massive heart attack, and he will not come through. So we've got to do something right now. And so they took us there. I don't know how people found out. I don't know if Beth or somebody come back and told the rest of the people. But we got our grandchildren. They said, you're going to get to see them in between angioplasty and the heart surgery. And so they just took us down the hallway. And it was funny because the doctor, we were going through the doors, and he looked around and he saw 14 people. He said, now, this is only for immediate family. And we said, this is immediate family. And he said, okay, that's fine. And grandchildren were there. They wheeled Dad from there, and he don't remember any of this, but they wheeled him there. And everybody kissed him and hugged him, told him I was praying for him. And it really got a hold of us because all the grandchildren began to cry when they kissed him. And so they took him. Time we got out there, people were starting to flood the area. And at one time, I don't know, it looked like to me, never did count, I don't know no count. It looked like to me there was almost 100 people around in that waiting room. And it's a testimony. I learned something that day. As a matter of fact, God gave me a thought. I don't know if it's going to be a message or a book or a story or what, but it's called Lessons in a Heartbeat. He's already given me the title, and I'm going to share it. But one of the lessons I learned is that if you treat people right, it'll come back. And a lot of people came and said, we came because your dad's been there for us. He's been there for my family, been there for my grandpa, been there for me, and we want to be there for him. And that's the reason we had so much help. And I'm so thankful for that. It was just a blessing. 8:30, they took him in. At 9 o'clock, he was on the heart pump, the pump, and they opened up his heart and began to work on it. They did 6 bypasses. And that's pretty rare, as I understand it, to have that many. And at about midnight, they were done. They come in. And here's another testimony. The doctor, he comes walking up, and he's going to tell us, Dr. Davis. And as he's coming up, he just stopped, and he looked around, and he looked all the way down that whole waiting area, long hallway. He said, are all these people with y'all? And I said, yeah. He said, do you feel loved? And I said, yes, sir, we do. We sure do. And he said, well, things went real good. Your dad helped us out. Things went very well. He says, I can't tell you that he's out of the woods because he's not. He's going to have to work hard tonight. But the surgery, I believe, is as successful as it could be. And we'll just have to wait and see. And so God took care of him, and he went in the room. 5:30 that next morning, Mom and I got to see him. Of course, my mom stayed all the way through, and I stayed with her. His two brothers, his twin brother Hugh, and his youngest brother Ronnie had come up, and they were there, and we stayed through the night. 5:30 in the morning, we could go see him, and so we went in there, and he was awake. And of course, he had the breathing tube in his mouth, and it was breathing for him. And first off, he looked at Mom, and he squeezed her hand real hard, and loved her, and then he squeezed my hand. Then the very next thing he did was he wanted that out. And so he pointed at his toes. I know you got to go with the bus ministry, and if you got to do, God bless you, just go ahead. We appreciate the bus ministry, don't we? Amen. Praise the Lord. And so he talked to us a little bit. He pointed down at his feet and began to do this with one hand and pointed down at his feet. We couldn't figure out what was going on. The nurse said, I think he wants his feet uncovered. He must be hot. And so he uncovered his feet, and then he pointed over at the nurse. Me and Mama was there, and we said, do you need the nurse? Are you talking about the nurse? Do you need her? And I said, what? And he looked at her, and he went, he was glad that she was there, and he just wanted her to know that he appreciated her. And so, but from there till 8:30, the tube come out. Then that afternoon, he did well. He began to talk with us. God's been with him. He had a couple of restless nights, but as Brother Jay said, he said he's been cut from neck to his ankle, so I guess he would have a rough night. And couple of things I'm going to let you go with. Number one, God is sovereign, and he puts everything in place. He does. He allowed for Brother Jay to call at that exact time. He allowed that there would be people with Dad. If this would have happened at 4 o'clock that morning while he was in the pool, we wouldn't be here today having this victory report. The doctor says he probably had 4 small heart attacks as he heard our stories and Dad's stories. And he's got just very minimal damage to his bottom part of his heart. And looks like it's going to be something that can recover. And I thank God for Brother Jay calling at the same time. I'm glad that someone was with him. I was glad I was there, but not because of me. I'm glad that I dropped him. Because somebody kidded me and said, now we've got a new maneuver. Okay? Just call Brother Steve. He'll drop you on the floor if you're having trouble. Okay? And so I'm glad I dropped him. I'm glad that Adrian was there ready to give CPR. I'm thankful for the paramedics. But I'm thankful most of all that God saw fit that he wasn't done. And when God's not done, what do we say? God's not done. You've read in your bulletin, Dad did 2 bulletins last week to get ahead. He wanted to get 1 week ahead. He did his bulletin, and that bulletin for today, I want you to read it. Psalm 24, and somebody help me, what verse? 31 and 24. And I want to get that. And it says, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. Pastor has a word for you this morning.
I just want to tell the church that I love you, and I think y'all are the greatest church in the world. Now, this has been a God thing for me. I've been sick for probably 2 or 3 years, and God had his hand on me, and I just want to let y'all know that everything's going to go well, and I'm getting to go home tomorrow, and God's going to bless the services tomorrow, and there's going to be some God things going on tomorrow. I love you, and just remember, you're the greatest people in the world. God bless you.